Hola a todos y bienvenidos a Coffee Break Spanish. Yo soy Mark.
Y yo soy Concha.
Cuéntame, ¿cómo estás, Concha?
Yo muy bien, Mark. Encantada de estar aquí.
Un placer, ¿no?
Sí. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás tú?
Todo bien, todo bien. And as Concha said, very happy to be here because today we're talking about an interesting grammatical concept and a very, very interesting course.
Sí, exactamente. Vamos a hablar del imperfecto.
Imperfecto. Do you know, this is probably my favorite Spanish tense, I think.
Oh, really?
I think you can possibly guess why, but I'll tell you a little bit of that later. Let's just check that everything is going according to plan. We seem to have some viewers, which is always good. We're broadcasting on YouTube and on Facebook, and so whatever you are watching, let us know. We always like to have some comments as we go through these things. Let me just also check that we have our slides available here. So hopefully, yes, we have. Oh, look at that! Isn't that beautiful?
Perfecto.
So we're talking about mastering the imperfect tense. I think what we should do, Concha, is think a little about the past in general, because I think that will help us contextualize. Because very often when we're starting to learn a different language, we kind of think, oh, we've got the present, we've got the past, we've got the future, but
Sí.
it's not as easy as all that. It's not as straightforward as all that.
No, por desgracia no. Unfortunately no, because we have quite a few past tenses in Spanish, as you
If
know.
you say the past tense, we could be talking about the perfect, the preterite, the imperfect, the pluperfect, the past.
All of them.
But yeah.
So many.
But today we're focusing on one in particular, and that is the imperfect tense. As I said, my favourite. Okay, let's think about this. We went to Argentina and Chile last year. Have a think about that. We went to Argentina and Chile last year. I have travelled to lots of South American countries. My father used to live in Buenos Aires. These are three examples in English, each of which would really necessitate a different tense in Spanish.
Exactamente.
We went to Argentina and Chile last year. That's something that happened in the past. It's almost a narrative event in the past. I have travelled to lots of South American countries. You're talking about what you have done. And it's got a kind of relationship to the present, in a sense. Yeah?
Yeah.
And my father used to live in Buenos Aires. That's something that happened in the past, and it was a closed period of time in the past, but we're describing a situation in the past.
Exactamente.
Agreed?
Sí, agreed completely.
Good. Okay. So let's now think about those concepts: went, have travelled, used to live, because we're going to think about the imperfect tense in particular, because that's the one that we would use for the used to live.
Exactamente.
Okay, it's only the third one that we're talking about here for the imperfect. In fact, the imperfect is used for talking about repeated actions in the past, ongoing actions in the past, incomplete actions in the past, and states of being, feelings, weather, all these kind of things in the past.
Eso es. Sí.
And we're going to see examples of all of this as we go forward. It describes what we used to do, and particularly when something was done on more than one occasion. So personally, I would say I used to dance every day as a child. I've never told you about that, Concha. I know you're a dancer, but I used to dance every day as a child, you know.
I would love to see that.
I used to dance every day. It's something that went on an ongoing, ongoing basis. Okay, so this is the imperfect, and we're still thinking about English. I always feel, as an English speaker, it helps for me to kind of contextualize the situations where we use a tense before we actually look at examples in the language.
Yeah, I agree completely, especially because it's the context was going to trigger one past tense or another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. It also is used for describing what was happening. For example, when something else happened, we were watching television at the time.
Sí.
Okay. We're deliberately not going into Spanish here. I know you're probably desperate to hear some Spanish, but not yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. And this one we've got to be careful here because it can translate would, but only when we refer to a repeated action in the past. This is I think this is the romantic side of the imperfect tense.
Yeah.
They would walk along the beach hand in hand at sunset every evening and so on.
Sí.
It's that kind of would. It's not, I would buy a house in Mallorca if I had lots of money.
No.
Totally different.
Not that one.
Okay, so just be careful with that one. Just be very, very careful. It's normally used to talk about most descriptions in the past. So when we're talking about people, places, clothes, feelings, weather, that's when we're using the imperfect. It was warm and he wore a t-shirt and shorts or whatever it was. Now, finally, we're seeing some Spanish.
Yay.
Because there is another situation where we really are going to see the imperfect regardless. It's going to be guaranteed 99% that we're going to see an imperfect tense. So let's hear some of these nice expressions in Spanish.
Okay, I'll read them for you. So the first one is a veces.
So at times,
Then we have frecuentemente,
frequently,
cada día,
every day,
siempre,
always,
todos los días.
every day, another way of saying it.
Eso es. And de vez en cuando.
I love that one. De vez en cuando, from time to time.
Sí.
Nice. So these are the words that when you see them, you know that the next tense you're going to see, if you're talking about the past, is going to be an imperfect. Okay, we've talked about how we use the imperfect. We've not given you really any examples in Spanish. That's coming. But I wanted to, first of all, as I said, put it into context, think about exactly when you use it so that when we come to use it, we know exactly which tense we're using.
Perfecto.
If you are confused, type 1 in the chat. If some of it makes sense, type 2. But if everything is okay so far, then type 3. And we'll keep an eye on the chat, and that way we'll know that things are making sense. Also, let us know where you're watching from in the chat. We've got Marcel saying buenas tardes. We've got, Marcel is watching us from Holland. And Deb is joining us from los Estados Unidos.
Oh, muy lejos.
Muy lejos, sí, sí, sí. We are, in case you didn't know, we're in Scotland this afternoon.
Eso es.
And this is where Coffee Break is based, and from where we bring you all of our content to help you move forward with your Spanish. The good news is, buenas noticias, porque tenemos muchos tres en el chat.
Perfecto. Me gusta.
Okay, let's move on then if the things are making sense. If you do have any questions, please post them and we'll get to your questions. It's time now to actually look at how we form the imperfect. We've talked about how it's used. The reason we didn't give any examples is because we hadn't learned how to form it yet.
Eso es.
So let's look at conjugating the imperfect. And this is the wonderful news. It's so regular.
It's so easy.
So the first example would be for AR verbs. And now it's probably clear why I love the imperfect so much.
I think I know why.
It ends in ABBA, like everything does. If you know me, you know that I'm a huge ABBA fan. And of course, that's A-double-B-A, but here we're looking at 1B. Let's take hablar.
Vale, perfecto. I'll conjugate hablar for you then. And I'm going to be using our famous hand gestures.
Perfecto, sí, sí.
Entonces, para yo es hablaba, hablabas, hablaba, hablábamos, hablabais, hablaban.
Okay, so what we're saying here is I was talking, you were talking, he or she or it was talking, we were talking, you all were talking, they were talking. So the whole conjugation, as you probably know, every verb is conjugated in 6 forms in Spanish, and those refer to different people, different persons. And that's how we translate it. So I was talking, or I used to talk, or even just I talked, again, depending on the circumstances.
Eso es.
So that's our AR verbs, and they all work the same. So all regular AR works the same.
Sí.
And then the next bit of good news, this is the piece of good news number 2. ER and IR verbs have the same endings.
That is wonderful. Honestly, I love this tense as well.
So we've got ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, ian. Let's put this together with an ER verb, perhaps comer.
Vale. Yo comía, comías, comía, comíamos, comíais, comían.
Okay, so again, let's use used to this time. So I used to eat, you used to eat, he, she, it used to eat, we used to eat, you all used to eat, and they used to eat. Now, of course, we also need to remember that third person singular and third person plural also refer to the usted and ustedes forms. So it could mean you formal eat, or used to eat in this case, or you plural formal used to eat, or used to eat.
Yeah, used to.
Oh dear. So that's an ER verb, comer. But we can do the same with an IR verb. Would you like to choose a regular IR verb?
Por ejemplo, vivir.
Vivir, perfecto.
Yo vivía, vivías, vivía, vivíamos, vivíais y vivían.
Perfecto. So very straightforward. I was living, you were living, he, she, it, or you polite were living. We were living, you all were living, they were living, or you plural polite, or indeed you plural in Latin America.
Exactamente. Sí.
We'll get there. So far in this session, we've learned all AR verbs, all ER verbs, and all IR verbs.
Exacto.
Now, as if this couldn't get any better, there's one more piece of good news. Concha, what's
Sí.
that third piece of good news?
That we have very few irregular verbs.
Yeah. Increíble.
Es genial.
We've got 3 irregular verbs.
Solo 3.
In the whole of the Spanish language, there are only 3 irregular verbs in Spanish in the imperfect tense.
Sí.
And they are ir,
Eso es. So let's.
ser. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'll just say ir, ser, and ver.
Ver.
Those 3 verbs. So
Eso
let's go
es.
through ir.
Vale,
So to
perfecto.
go.
So, yo iba, ibas, iba, íbamos, ibais, iban.
So I was going, you were going, he, she, it, you polite were going, we were going, you all were going, and they were going. Okay? So that's ir, to go. Then we've got ser, to
Eso
be, one of the verbs to be.
Eso es. Yo era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran.
Okay, perfecto. Y finalmente, ver.
Yo veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, veían.
It could not be more straightforward. So
Totalmente.
we've got regular verbs, which are either aba, abas, aba, and so on. Irregular, those are AR verbs. Then our ER and IR verbs,
Ajá.
which would be ia, ias, ia.
Eso es.
Then we've got ir, iba, ibas, iba, ser, era, eras, era, and ver, veía, veías, veía.
Exacto.
Which is a kind of combo, I think, of the, I don't know, it's got the A and the IA and all that kind of thing. So there we have it. That is the imperfect tense. Question, how are you finding this? Are you confused? Does some bits of this make sense? Or is it a case of it's all good so far? So you can put uno, dos o tres in
Eso es.
el chat.
I hope there's lots of tres.
Yo también. Okay, so what we're going to do now is move on to a listening activity. Again, we're looking out for those 3s in the chat, but we're going to look at a listening activity. And Concha is going to read a little passage that she's written about something that happened in the past, because we're going to hear lots of imperfect tenses in this. Now, to begin with, we're going to hear it just with no text whatsoever. So listen really carefully and see if you can pick out some of the verbs that she uses. Once we've done that, we will then hear it with the text on the screen, and you'll be able to follow the text. And once we've done that, we'll go through it together
Sí.
and just go through it line by line and talk about everything in it and talk about all those interesting imperfect tenses.
Eso es.
¿Te parece bien?
Me parece perfecto.
Ok, pues vamos a por ello.
Pues venga. Cuando era pequeña, mi familia y yo solíamos ir a la casa de campo de nuestra abuela a pasar un par de semanas en verano. Mi abuela, mi prima y yo nos despertábamos al amanecer. Mirábamos cómo el sol salía de detrás de las montañas y luego preparábamos el desayuno para toda la familia. Después, cuando hacía calor, íbamos a la piscina, donde nos bañábamos, jugábamos a las cartas, leíamos un libro. Más tarde, comíamos todos juntos y luego algunos se echaban la siesta y otros veían la tele. Por la tarde volvíamos a la piscina. Para terminar el día, cenábamos juntos y luego todos jugábamos a algún juego en familia. Eran unos días maravillosos. Tengo muy buenos recuerdos.
Ay, qué bien.
It's a true story.
True story, nice. So what we're seeing here, you immediately hear lots of íbamos or habamos. we hear lots of íamos, and because you're talking about we did such and such, we did such and such.
Eso es.
So we're hearing a rhythm. The kind of repeating of these forms really helps us kind of sort our heads in that particular time, and we can see all the different things that happen. Now, hopefully you understood a fair chunk of that. What we'll do now is bring the text on screen and we'll go through it again, and then we'll go through it line by line. So let's take a look at the beginning of this text.
Vamos allá. Cuando era pequeña, mi familia y yo solíamos ir a la casa de campo de nuestra abuela a pasar un par de semanas en verano. Mi abuela, mi prima y yo nos despertábamos al amanecer. Mirábamos cómo el sol salía de detrás de las montañas y luego preparábamos el desayuno para toda la familia. Después, cuando hacía calor, íbamos a la piscina, donde nos bañábamos, jugábamos a las cartas, leíamos un libro. Más tarde comíamos todos juntos y luego algunos se echaban la siesta y otros veían la tele. Por la tarde volvíamos a la piscina. Para terminar el día, cenábamos juntos y luego todos jugábamos algún juego en familia. Eran unos días maravillosos. Tengo muy buenos recuerdos.
Okay, lovely. Muchas gracias.
Nada.
What I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is let me know in the chat again how you found that text. Was it really straightforward? Put 3. Was it okay, you understood chunks of it? Put 2. Or if it was really quite a challenging text, then put 1. And then again, that helps us get an idea of the levels based on how you're getting on in this. What we're going to do now is go through the whole text in detail, and we'll talk about the language used, and particularly focusing on those imperfect tenses, because there are lots of them in here. Lots and lots and lots. Okay, so interesting to see some 2s, some 3s here so far. Good stuff.
Bien, bien.
Okay, let's go through it. So, to begin with, Concha said, cuando era pequeña, when I was small. Now, there's that first era. It's from the verb ser.
Eso es.
And it's one of our irregulars. But how many irregulars are there?
Solo 3.
Solo 3. So, when I was small, mi familia y yo solíamos ir a la casa de campo de nuestra abuela. So I love this verb, solíamos. It's from the verb soler.
Eso es.
What does soler mean?
Soler means when you tend to do something, or when you usually do something, or in this case, when you used to do something.
Yeah, so we tended to go to the casa de campo, the country house de nuestra abuela, of our grandmother, a pasar un par de semanas en verano, to spend a couple of weeks in the summer.
Eso es.
Could we have said para pasar un par de semanas?
Sí, también.
Okay, so both work.
Sí.
Mi abuela, mi prima y yo, so my grandmother, my cousin and I, nos despertábamos al amanecer. So you didn't have a long lie on holiday?
No. Well, depends on what time we went to bed.
Okay.
But yeah, normally no.
So despertarse is a reflexive verb. It means to wake up. And we used to wake up al amanecer, at dawn.
Eso es.
Okay.
Sí.
At sunrise, I guess. Mirábamos como el sol salía de detrás de las montañas. So we used to watch how the sun rose, salía de detrás de las montañas, from behind the mountains. Y luego preparábamos el desayuno para toda la familia.
Eso
And
es.
then we used to prepare the breakfast for the whole family.
Exacto.
Now, remember that whole romantic idea of the would part of the imperfect? I think that could be used here, couldn't it?
Sí. Sí, perfecto. And it's a perfect description as well, because we used to look how the sun would rise from behind the mountains.
Yeah, it just paints that sort of extra stroke of the brush, doesn't
Sí.
it? I like that would in the past. It's a nice translation. Okay, let's go on. Después, cuando hacía calor, íbamos a la piscina. So later, when it was warm, so it was doing heat kind of thing,
Sí.
íbamos a la piscina. We would go to the swimming pool, or we used to go to the swimming pool, donde nos bañábamos, where we swam, jugábamos a las cartas, we played cards, leíamos un libro, we read a book. Now notice there that I've said where we swam, where we played cards, where we read a book. I'm using simple past tenses in English.
Sí.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. The only thing is that these are actions that happened regularly when we went, and again, another past tense, to the pool. So that's why we are using the imperfect, because it's something that we used to do when we went to the pool.
Swap it around for a moment and tell me that, I don't know, at the weekend, you went to the swimming pool, you swam with your friends or with your family.
Okay.
You swam, you played cards, and you read a book.
Vale. So I would say, la semana pasada fui a la piscina, me bañé, o bueno, nos bañamos, if it's us. Jugamos a las cartas, leímos un libro.
So it's a little tricky when we're using the nosotros form because we don't hear the preterite so much there. So let's hear it with the yo form.
Perfecto. Entonces, fui a la piscina, donde me bañé, jugué a las cartas y leí un libro.
So there we're hearing a preterite, another past tense, and that's the past tense that's used for very straightforward narration events in the past.
Eso es.
But these ones are different. So there, Concha was saying what she did this weekend, 3 separate things that she did. But here in the text, we're talking about what they did every year when they went to holiday at their grandmother's house.
Exactly. And it's also kind of like a description of a context of what was going on. We wouldn't necessarily bañarnos every day or jugar a las cartas every day. So it was, we used to do these things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good. Y más tarde comíamos todos juntos y luego algunos se echaban la siesta y otros veían la tele. So, and later on we would all eat together and then some would have a siesta and others would watch the TV. That's interesting. Echarse la siesta. Okay, can you hacer una siesta?
You can hacer la siesta.
La siesta.
Yeah.
But you echarse, you get more impression of throwing yourself into.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like dive into the bed, as it were.
Because it's so hot and you just need a little rest. Yeah?
Sí, totalmente.
Okay, what happened in the evening? Por la tarde volvíamos a la piscina. You went back to the swimming pool. Para terminar el día, cenábamos juntos. To end the day, we ate together. Y luego todos jugábamos algún juego de familia. And we all played some board game, some family game.
Eso es.
Eran unos días maravillosos. There were some fantastic days. Tengo muy buenos recuerdos. I have got some really good memories. Okay, now hopefully all of you who have been listening to that, even if you put 2 beforehand, hopefully now you're nearer a 3. That things make a little more sense now based on what we've been talking about. We're going to take things forward from here and talk a little more about the masterclass because this content is taken from our Coffee Break Spanish Masterclass program. And it's a program which runs over 6 months and actually begins tomorrow. So we thought it would be useful to give you a little more information about this. And while I explain things, Concha, if you can keep an eye on questions. Absolutely. So if you have any questions about this, then please do post the questions in the chat and I will be happy to answer them after I've gone through some of the main details about the masterclass. So, taking it further with the Coffee Break Spanish Masterclass, it is, and that is not the right slide. Okay, well, we'll start with this slide anyway. Okay, not to worry. It is coffee break length. Okay, so what does that mean? Basically, it's a program that is made up of short, friendly, fun episodes where in each episode, in each lesson, you are moving forward with your Spanish. And of course, they can all fit in a coffee break. So they're around 15 minutes long, 15 to 20 minutes long. Their coffee break style, very friendly, very fun, and not turn to page 37 of your book and write that passage out and do some vocabulary revision. Or it's enjoyable. It's conversations, and there's a learner, there's a teacher. We're working together with all of the coffee break lessons, just as we would do in all of our series. And of course, coffee break quality, because we put a lot of effort to make sure that everything is absolutely spot on quality wise, and we make high quality video, high quality audio to help you get as much as you can out of the materials. The Coffee Break Masterclass runs over 6 months with 6 different modules. And each module, you get a number of lessons that you can do where and when it suits you. They're not lessons that happen at a particular time. They're lessons that are made available to you at a particular time, and you can do them whenever it suits you after that. Let's take a look at the curriculum and what we're going to be covering in the masterclass. The first module is on frases hechas. So that is a module on idiomatic expressions. This is where we help you sound more really like a native speaker, because native speakers would use frases hechas all the time. These are things like idioms and sayings and different expressions that make you feel that you're mastering Spanish more. I'm thinking meter la pata, for example, when you put your foot in it or something like that. So that's Module 1 on frases hechas, where you also build your vocabulary. Module 2 focuses on tricky verbs. So verbs that you may know, you might be familiar with some of these verbs. I'm thinking, for example, like dar, the verb to give. But dar can be used in many, many situations. Concha, dar is one of those verbs that we use all the time, not just meaning to give.
No, you can dar so many, or not dar so many things, but dar can acquire so many other meanings.
Yeah.
For example, when you say dar las gracias, when you thank somebody.
So literally to give thanks, but when you thank something, dar quiero dar las gracias, I want to give thanks, I want to thank you. Or dar un paseo,
También.
when you go for a walk. So dar, although dar, that was really strange. Dar, dar, when we use it, it can take on all these different meanings.
Sí.
So in our module on tricky verbs, that's exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at these kind of verbs that have other meanings too. Module 3 is focusing on false friends, so another vocabulary-based module where we're looking at words which you think you know what they mean, but in fact you don't know what they mean at all because they mean something completely different. So words like actualmente. So actualmente is, it sounds like actually, but it doesn't mean actually. It means right now at the very moment. Lots of false friends in different conversations, and again, you're seeing these within the context of dialogues and practicing them yourself. In Module 4, and this is happening in January, so Module 1 October, Module 2 November, Module 3 December, Module 4 in January, that's tense mastery, and we'll be looking at different tenses and really getting to grips with all of these tenses. So as you've seen today, we've been looking at the imperfect, that's one of the tenses we look at, but we'll also cover the preterite, we'll cover the perfect, we'll cover the future, and in that module you really will begin to build your confidence on how to use these tenses in different ways. In Module 5, we are focusing on a topic that unfairly scares some learners, I think. It's the subjunctive, and it's a special type of verb which is used in particular situations. So with the subjunctive module, we'll look at not only how it's formed, but when it's used and triggers that mean that you need to use a particular subjunctive at a particular time. And finally, in Module 6, we're looking at tricky Spanish. So those things that really cause learners some difficulties. I'm thinking, for example, like por and para, a very, very common tricky thing that learners experience. Concha, you've been helping with the masterclass for many years now. Any particular favourite modules?
I think probably the subjunctive one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, as a Spanish teacher, I love the subjunctive unconditionally. But I think that's when you can use the subjunctive as a native speaker is when your Spanish kind of like, whoop,
Yeah.
like jumps a little bit in
jumps, yeah.
level.
And I think it gives you, when you use it correctly, you kind of do, oh, I use the subjunctive.
Yeah.
And you feel that confidence coming through. So I think that's a good one. Good. Okay. So that is the curriculum of the masterclass that we're focusing on. Again, if you've got any questions at all, please don't hesitate to post them, and we'll answer them as we get to them. Okay, the schedule of the masterclass. Now, I need to go full screen for this one. Let me just see if I can do that. The schedule for the masterclass looks something like this. So this is October, and we're starting tomorrow. So Module 1, Lesson 1 is made available tomorrow. And then on the 4th of October, you'll get another lesson. and then you'll get another lesson on the 8th, and then another activity on the 11th. And so you can see that the activities and the lessons are spread out over the course of the month with additional materials at the end, like our checklist, our video review, and we'll also have our test at the end. So that helps you work your way through the modules. Let me just take that away again. Sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button here. There we are, thank you. So for the target audience, again, I'm going to go full screen again here. The target audience, this is something that we want to make sure is very clear, because the target audience is for those of you who are at an intermediate level and you want to progress beyond that intermediate level. So if we imagine the journey of learning Spanish, working through what we call the Common European Framework of Reference for language learning, and we go through level A1 as beginners, A2 as upper beginners, and then move into lower intermediate, and then move on beyond the intermediate to upper intermediate and on to advanced. So we believe that the masterclass sits very much between that B1, B2 level. And the idea there is that we're helping you move on beyond that, making progress as you progress. Making progress as you progress. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you know what I mean. Making progress as you work through the lessons for the masterclass. Pricing. Let's talk about pricing. So all of the elements of the masterclass, there are many elements. Let's take a look at them. You get 5 lessons per month. You get the bonus activities. You get a module test at the end of each module. Then there are email check-ins, so we'll let you know when a new module is available and let you know that there's a new activity on. We also provide guaranteed feedback. So in every episode or every lesson, you get a homework activity that you've got to complete, and you complete that within the masterclass website, and you'll get guaranteed feedback on your work. So one of our tutors, it might be Concha, it might be another member of the team, would reply to you and give you feedback on what you've written. And the great thing is you don't only see your feedback, but you see everyone else's feedback. So you can learn multiple times with the whole class of the masterclass as everyone comes together to learn. And of course, at the end, you get a course certificate too. Now, the usual price for this is $649, but at the moment, we are offering this for a special price in our opening week of $499 for the full 6 month. That's not a monthly payment, it's a full payment for the 6-month course. Now, there is a monthly payment. You can opt to go for the monthly version. And the monthly version is 6 payments of $129, but that's brought down to $99 at the moment again in our promotion. So that's the cost of the masterclass. Okay, let's move on. Oh, we're moving on to questions. Is there? Actually, one thing before we do go to questions. Let me just go to this screen, and this shows you a little about. It's kind of summary really of what we've talked about. So 6 months, 6 modules. I know that this is very small, but I'll talk you through it. 5 audio lessons per month. There are course booklets, one which features all the lesson materials. So you've got the transcripts of all the conversations, and you've also got explanations and vocabulary lists. And then you've also got a second course booklet which focuses on, it's basically like a reference guide, which will give you grammar notes and explanations of all of the topics that we cover. There will be bonus resources like our video reviews, checklists to help you consolidate your learning, the homework tasks where you're getting that personalised feedback, and VIP support where your homework's corrected and your questions answered by the team. So you can ask a question at any time and the team will of course get back to you. So questions, as I say, have we got any questions from the chat?
We do actually. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. Harry is asking, when is the audio movie of Verano Español due? So that's not quite related to the masterclass.
Not quite.
One day,
yeah.
Harry. But Marcy is asking, ¿son todas las clases grabadas o también hay clases en vivo como esta? So are all the lessons recorded or are there any live lessons like this one?
Okay, good question. So the main lessons of the masterclass are recorded. So we've put together recordings of the different lessons with the audio materials. We've also recorded videos to contextualize each lesson, and the video reviews are all pre-recorded. So that means that they can be accessed where and when you want. They are made available on those days that I mentioned earlier, and you can access them and work through them as and when it suits you. In addition to that, we also are offering something new for this session of the masterclass, and that is live speaking classes. And these are an additional cost, so there's an additional bonus element that you can add when you purchase the masterclass. And there are 3 speaking classes per module. And with the 3 speaking classes per module, basically you'll join a small group at a particular time of day, and you will practice what you've learned in the masterclass.
Exacto.
We're really excited to be trialing this for the first time in our masterclass for this time.
Sí. We have a couple of other questions. So one that I thought was very interesting, actually. Can you do just one module of the masterclass?
Okay, so the answer to that question is no. The masterclass, we've created the masterclass as a complete course. So when you start the masterclass, everything that you do is progressive. Everything builds on what went before. So when you move into module 2, you'll be seeing the tricky verbs that came up in module 1, or the frases hechas, or whatever combination of things it is. And sorry, I'm going to have to cough, excuse me.
That's okay. But yeah, it's thought in a way that everything that you see in a module has come up in previous modules. I think that's what you were wanting to say, Mark. Sí, exacto. So it's not really ideal if you only want to do one. If you want to make the most of this course, then you would start with module 1 and then build up till module 6.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. I don't think I'm going to be able to put it better myself either. Yeah, so progressive, so it's not available as single modules.
Exacto. We have another interesting question. So how much time do I need to commit to the course each month?
Yeah, each month. I would rather focus on this every couple of days, let's say, because when we're looking at doing a particular lesson, the lesson itself, the audio lesson might last, let's say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So what we find is that some learners like to do that in the morning of a Monday morning or a Monday evening or something like that. So you would do the audio lesson then. Maybe the next day you would spend 10 minutes reading through the notes for that. Maybe the following day you would listen to the dialogues and the lessons again on your way to work, in the car or something like that. And then the following day you'd be ready for the next lesson. And it's that little bit every day. So perfectly feasible if you've got, let's say, 15 minutes a day. And I would say possibly most people have 15 minutes a day, depending on your work commitments, your family commitments, caring for family members and so on. You possibly will have 15 minutes a day that you can dedicate to this.
Sí. And we also, not quite a question, but a comment. I'm afraid this level is high for me. I'm a beginner. So.
Well, if you are a beginner, then please do check out Coffee Break Spanish Level 1, which is available on our website. You can head to coffeebreaklanguages.com/Spanish and you'll find Coffee Break Spanish Level 1 there. And we will accompany you every step of the way from level 1 all the way up to an advanced level. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yep.
I see one other comment there. Marcy saying, perdóname, no entendí. Hay un costo adicional por las clases en vivo. Yes, there is. So the main masterclass price that we've mentioned covers all of the materials. It covers the tutor feedback. It covers all of the ongoing engagement with you. But the optional extra would be to add in the speaking classes, and there are 3 per module on that basis. So it's a small group of speaking students together, and that is an additional cost that you would add in if you wish to at checkout. Talking of which, if you're interested in signing up for the masterclass and becoming part of the class of October 2024, then check out coffeebreakmasterclass.com. If you go to that link, you'll be able to see our 3 masterclasses that are currently available, because it's also available in Italian and French. So if you're an Italian or French learner, you can do a similar class, and you'll find all the information you need there at coffeebreakmasterclass.com.
Muy bien.
If you happen to be watching this after the event. If you've not watched us live, but you've followed up after the event, then of course, let us know if you have any questions. We'll do our best to answer them. The best way to get in touch with us is by going to our website at coffeebreaklanguages.com and clicking on the little speech bubble icon that appears there, and you can get in touch with us through our chat system there and send us a question, and we'll do our best to answer that. Concha, any final comments on the masterclass? Again, you've been involved in the masterclass, and I think you've seen how much progress students have made over the past many years.
Sí. Definitely. As a teacher, I think that's one of the most fulfilling things for me, to see when, the final comment in the final homework task, and I can see that the learner has improved their level so much, and they're incorporating all the resources that they've learned, and it's great. Yeah.
Definitely. If you would like to hear more from the learners who have taken part in the masterclass, then again, go to that page, coffeebreakmasterclass.com, click on Spanish, and you can scroll down the page and you can hear from some of our learners who share their experience of taking part in the masterclass and how they've fitted it into their lives, how much they've learned and how they've improved their Spanish and what they can do now with Spanish, having completed the masterclass.
Sí.
Bueno, eso es todo por hoy.
Pues ya está, muy bien.
We hope that you've found this useful. Most importantly, we hope that you've learned something, because if you weren't familiar with the imperfect tense before and now you do know something about the imperfect tense, then great. If you did know the imperfect tense, then hopefully some of the examples that we've gone through and the listening activity that we did was useful to you as a little bit of review.
Mm-hmm.
We also hope that you consider becoming a member of the Coffee Break Spanish Masterclass for October 2024 and taking your Spanish to the next level, al siguiente nivel.
I'd love to see you there.
Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Hasta luego.